Hey everybody, how you all doing? I am going to actually talk about using grays in your photos or in your paintings. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer. There we go. I think that's going to be as good as we're going to get. So anyway, what I wanted to do was talk about possibly using some grays in your paintings. The past masters were really good at this, and I actually have to find myself reminding myself that I don't need to punch up every color that I put on the canvas. So this is a Sorella painting that he did. This is a photo of it, but to point out what I'm talking about when I talk about gray, I'm not really talking about a gray color, like, you know, just mix a shade of black lighter and put it down. All of these colors here in the background is some form of gray with some color in it, naturally. So, you know, some folks would say, like, this photograph looks like it's a watercolor or whatever, but don't get by that. This is an oil painting, and a picture of an oil painting. And you can see here, this still has luscious color, but if I was to isolate, let's see if I can find, let's just use a paper towel. But if I was to isolate the color that was around it in this particular area, it now looks a little more grayish, toned down, less chroma, however you want to say it. It has less chroma in it, less pop, less less of just a, you know, a color tube, if you will. So that has more than this above it, but it's still considered a grayed down color. You know, you can see the difference here just with this gray that is actually kind of a gray, and then we go into this brownish color. So what I wanted to do with this, and then you can go over on this side as well, you know, and block some stuff out, so that his central figures still have a little bit of grayish, you know, color in it. It's not as vibrant as like this or this. Okay, so he uses the chroma of the painting to basically direct your eye around, and you know, we're directed from this gorgeous hat in the back, the foot that's taking us back here, you know, these wonderful colors that keep us in a circle. So he's using chroma to guide the eye. So I just wanted to point that out with you all, and I wanted to talk about color relationships while we're talking about this too. So you can mix up a number of grays. Oh, I got two people here. Who's here? Oh, just Renee. Hey, Renee. So with this, what I did here was basically take my palette that I had left over. So I had ultramarine on it. I had a cadmium yellow on it, ultramarine blue. Probably had a little bit of a cadmium red, some white. And I mixed it all together at the end and created this thing that Edgar Payne always talked about and said was called mud. And this mud is right now looking like it's on the green side. So if I want to change what that color looks like up here, let me get my other knife since I have it standing up. I have on a palette over on the side, I have some ultramarine blue, Michael Harding's ultramarine blue, Michael Harding's alizarin crimson, and Michael Harding's cadmium yellow. Okay, so just so that you can see some of their tubes. So this Michael Harding alizarin crimson series number 302, or number 302 series 3. So that's the red that's there. I have Michael Harding's Cadmium Yellow, number 402, Series 4. And my ultramarine blue is back in the cabinet. So my little girl, my little kitty can't. At least I thought it was. Oh, there it is. Oh, now. Okay, and I have Michael Harding's Ultramarine Blue Series 113, number 113, Series 1. Okay, so all those are there. Just the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. And you can see with the blue here, you know, this still looks green. I also have out, by the way, Michael Harding's Titanium White 2, number 102, Series 1. Okay, so I also have some of that out there on a palette over there. So there's some white. So you could say this relative, you actually see this little blue streak in there too. So you can say it's, you know, very much a green. It's a gray green. It's not popping. And what I mean by that is if I took a touch of this and I took a touch of the cadmium yellow, this is a much higher in chroma green. So if I put it over there, you can see the difference in those two greens. This one is very grayed down green. This one is, you know, very chroma, very pop, you know, the green color. So automatically you can say to yourself at this point that if I use this color of green, the gray green, as a under of a leaf, if you will, and this is the top part of the leaf, I automatically get a temperature change between these two, right? So this is a very cool temperature, very gray. This is, you know, very warm. And yet it's still not as warm as it could be if I took that and added some yellow, more yellow to it. You know, we're even up higher in temperature. So is that close enough? Yeah. So, you can see the difference here. So, you know, cool, warm, warmer, okay, in temperature, gray, full chroma, and a nice chroma to it. So, all right. So let's look at some other color relationships where we go, you know, green to green, if you will. So let's take some of this gray and let's put it here. You can see how gray it is. It actually, I need to tape this down a little bit more. Hold on 1 second. Taping my palette down so it doesn't fight me too much. Okay. So what I want to do now is show you some really cool things that happen when I take the mud that is on my, you know, leftover palette. I used to have tubes of mud where I would just take this off, put it in an empty tube that you can buy out on Jerry's Artorama, or any art store usually carries them, and you can just, you know, save your mud, and you don't have to make it out of your regular pigments. Hello, Debbie. So this is the very gray that was saved from my last palette. And I said earlier, as you can see, this is more on the green side. So what do I want to do if I want this not to be so green? I could add its complement color of red. And I added a pretty good amount of red in this little. And the reason why I did that is because alizarin crimson is a transparent color in the oil. I'm going to grab some from over here so that you can still see that there. And I turn this into more of a purple. Right? So now it's a real grayed down purple color. Put this next to it so you can see it. So we went from that green color to that purple color. Both of them still grayed down. If I mixed purple with just the straight 2 right out of the tube, More blue than red. Let's put a little more red. I'm mixing it up over here. I'm going to put it up there so you can see the difference in the chroma of this purple. Okay, so real chroma one's up there. So there you can see it's a little more blue than red, but you can also see the difference in the chroma. If I wanted this to be even grayer, this one, how would I make that happen? Well, I'd put in a little bit of its complement, which in this case is the cadmium yellow, kind of turning brown. Okay, so cadmium yellow is not as transparent as the alizarin crimson. I still want it to be purple, so I come back, put a little more red in it, of the alizarin crimson in it. And look, as it sits next to that, it still looks pretty brown. I want to take it back to the purple, although I like that brown. Okay. You could also do this by using your cadmium, which is not as transparent as the alizarin crimson. Okay. I'm going to take a little bit of white and bump it up a step in value. Okay. There we go. It's a nice gray color. And the reds. So if I take some of this blue, add a little more of the alizarin crimson, which is very high in pigment. Back to a brown, brownish green. Okay. Going to add a touch, just a touch, of the alizarin crimson. Too much. You can see how the color changes when you add the complement. Okay. Going to add a little bit of the titanium white. Do you see how that changed when I added the white? It was that brown color. Now it has kind of a blue. Tint to it. You may not be able to see that, but it does. And if I took this color, put it there, clean this color up, sit it next to it, you can see how neutral this color is next to that. If I take a little bit of the blue with that very neutral gray, and a touch of that pinkish, reddish, or alizarin crimson color, put that next to it, and that looks, there's a purple tone to this that you may not be catching on the Facebook Live. But it's very much more to a bluish, very blue color. So if I take this green and set it next to it again, doesn't really affect it too much, maybe makes it look a little more blue. So you're getting some relationship between these as well. Look how that went more red as it goes to that side. Now if I would mix all of these together, let's see what interesting color gray we get. There we go. Nice, nice shade. Like that shade. So it's a very neutral color that could be used in these paintings to just give the eye a subtle place to rest. If I take some alizarin crimson, I'm sorry, if I take some cad yellow, I do know my colors, I'm just don't know what my brain's saying. I'm going to mix up an orange, which is the complement of blue. Okay. If I take some of this color, I want to add a little white to it. I want to bring it up in value. Bring that up in value as well. And I want to bring up that orange in value. I'm going to take some of, what I'm doing is basically taking some of the chroma out of it as well. So you can add white, you can gray it down. The problem with adding white is you end up with a very chalky looking color that you don't particularly want to have. So that orange, I'm going to make this a little more blue. Okay, so I'm going to put this right there. And you can see how these play off of one another, the relationships that they have. Now if I put that purple here, you can see how much darker this purple is compared to these. Again, that's value. There is a little more chroma in this, but since it's sitting right next to the orange, the chroma isn't as high as it is if you're just looking up here. Okay? And you see the base, you know, how these colors just, you know, even next to one another, are just starting to pop. And, you know, we haven't even made a painting out of it yet. See the difference between those two. Higher in chroma, still gray. Not as much chroma as that. You can see how that goes. So if I was going to, you know, create a tree, for example, be the tree trunk, if you will, and maybe a branch there, just real quick. You can see how these start to play off of one another. In there. Just as an example, real quick example. So if I'm done with that, I'm going to make another pile of Edgar Payne's mud here with all the colors that we've been playing with. Let's see what color we get here. pretty, mauve looking color. Hi, Lynn. Lynn just joined us. So we have a very mauve looking color here. Once your eyes start seeing, gray, let me get an ivory black out, and you stay out of my paint closet, girly. Come on, get down. Watch your paw. Get your paw down. Sorry, little girl's up here under my feet. My little kitty. She wants to go in and eat paint, which I don't let her do. She knows better. All right, so I was talking about, just the gray versus the color gray. So let me mix up a gray. Just a regular old gray made out of Michael Harding's Ivory Black, number 129, Series 1. I love Michael's paints, by the way. They have a lot more pigment. Don't have any fillers, don't have any dryers. They stay high in color. I find it very hard to make a color with Michael's paints that I don't like, if you will. I always, no matter what I mix up, I always end up liking it. I'm going to put this gray right there. So that's basically just gray, okay? Made out of black, added some titanium white with it. Sorry, Lynn, you asked a question. Let me see. What were the original colors on the palette? Okay, you came in late, so that's fine. So this was from this mud that I made up, Edgar Payne's mud, if you want to call it that. That was from the last time I went live and finished off the First Presbyterian Church. So ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, cadmium yellow, probably some sienna, maybe some titanium, unbleached titanium oxide, all of them Michael Harding paints. And so I ended up with this kind of green color because this green-gray, because there was a lot of blue and yellow that was on that palette that was left over. On the palette now is Michael Harding's ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, excuse me a minute. Stop it! Dealing with cat claws on the carpet. So anyway, alizarin crimson, sorry, and cadmium yellow, titanium white, okay? And I'm just showing how these gray colors can work in your painting. So this Hi, Haley. All right. So now I'm going to take this gray and I'm going to add some white, or some yellow, sorry, yellow to it. Now all of a sudden I have this green color, right? And that's using the black, or the gray that I made out of the ivory black and white, and I added yellow to it and came up with green. Okay? So what happens then if I take the complement of that green, red, alizarin crimson, and add that in? Still on the gray side, or on the green side, still gray. I'm just going to add a little bit more. Like I said, this is a transparent paint, just like the okay, now I'm going to take this Since we have red, I'm going to go over here and grab some alizarin crimson, throw that in there. Got a little more alizarin crimson than I wanted, which is fine. I'm going to add some white to that because it's quite transparent. I'm trying to keep the values similar for you. So that we're not playing with value as much as we're playing with temperature and chroma of the paints. Now, I'm going to put this here, but I want to put it over here where we said, remember we said this was more of a mauve, a red color, right? So now look how that changes when I put that right next to it. Look how your eye just makes this a brown right away, right? And we said when we first started mixing all these grays up that that actually was a mauve color. And now it's changed. Just basically because we put this, more red color by it. So again, color relationship. Okay? Pretty cool. That's how your eye's interpreting that color. Okay? So if I take what was that mauve color and put it over here and is now what we're going to be calling brown. And I'm going to mix up some ultramarine blue here. It's way too much blue. Sorry about that. Put that up there. I'm going to take some of this green mud and let's see what we can do playing around with that. I'm going to take it to the blue side. Again, there's times when I just sit here and just play with mixing colors just so I can expand my palette a little bit. This particular gray color will be great in that Pacific Ocean blue painting that I'm going to be doing. I'm not sure I can do anything about volume. Lynn, sorry. I'm doing this on my old iPad, so I'll just try to stay closer to here and talk a little bit louder. So I added blue. Let's, this looks like a blue side gray, which, is basically what I want. Let's put a little bit of this down here, some of the other gray, so you can see what that gray looks like. Mix up some more of that gray. So you don't necessarily, one of the reasons why I'm doing it kind of this way is you don't necessarily have to start out with making a gray color, per se. You can do it by just having a mud color like I have and just adding different colors to it. And let's put some of this over here so we know what we came from. I got this guy. So this is a bluish green, so I'm going to add a little bit of alizarin crimson to it. I'm going to add a little bit of the cad yellow to it. Let's see what we come up with. I'm going to add a touch of white so I can bring it up in value a little bit. Yeah. And we go into, because of the start from the ivory gray, we go more towards green color, almost back to this, right? So let's take that and let's add its complement red to it even more. I'm going to add a little touch of blue since I slammed it with the red. And again, I'm just playing to see how many gray colors that I can make, grayed down colors that I can make while I'm playing with the three primaries and the mud that I had left over. Do my yellow. I'm going to add in some white. And you guys can just watch how all of these different grays start having some color relationship things going on. Okay, if I put this green next to that color that we said is brown, it starts to turn more to the red side. Okay. If I take this green, sneak it in back into there, you can see the difference between these two. And how that color becomes more of a brown now that it's, you know, being surrounded by other colors. That really turns purple. That looks like a black almost. It's definitely purple, but it's darker. So again, you know, all of these different grays, again, this is an ivory black gray that I just brought up. I'm going to, again, I know what's going to happen if I put cadmium yellow into this. It's going to turn green. And if you don't believe me, there we go. There's a green. What I want to do is I want to make an orange, which I'm doing over on my palette over here. Why am I doing that? Because the ivory black has some blue, that ivory black has some blue pigment in it. And the blue pigment complement is orange, so I have an orange here. I'm going to mix this in just to see what that green gray looks like. So by doing this, you start to understand, A, your paint's better. You know how much paint to, certain paints that are higher in pigment, you know how to get less of that in your color. You look at your difference in your greens with an ivory black versus an ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, green. Okay. Very chroma. About the same value. Cooler temperature, warmer temperature. Just by using the complement, not by using white. Throw some of that over there. I can control the chroma on this. Again, Michael's paints are high in pigment, so I don't really want to slam it, so I just want a little touch of red and sneak up on it. Ivory black versus French ultramarine, and cadmium yellow with a little bit of alizarin thrown in. And finally getting that grayish point to it, but still pretty chromatic. Okay. I'm going to throw in just a touch of the ultramarine blue. You know, greens are always a hard color. You know, there's so many greens in the world. Okay. A little more red. I'll just steal a part of that over there. So if I take, let's see what happens when I take ivory black. I'm going to throw in some ultramarine blue. Nice black, by the way. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's go down here. It's got some blue to it. So it's nice. I like that. Not as opaque as some. So I'm going to take some yellow cadmium yellow, throw that in there. It's got both of them. So again, here's another different green. Okay. Thanks, Lynn. Lynn just said it's a fabulous demo. So glad you liked it. I did this for my class down in Cincinnati when I was, or in Middletown when I was teaching at the Middletown Art Center. I just played with mud that I had left over, and basically just added color to it. And they absolutely loved it. So I'm gonna take that base mud that I have. I'm gonna add ultramarine blue, and I'm gonna add alizarin crimson to it. Okay, starting to go into purple. Still gray. A little bit. Let's see. Let me look. I'm thinking it's a little bit darker in value. Nope, not darker in value. Still where I want it to be. Okay. So again, this has no ivory black in it. And I got this nice dark purple color again. Going to add a little bit of purple's complement, which is yellow. Into it. I love how it goes green and then it goes goes down to that brown. Okay. I'll take some of this ivory gray back next, sit down there next to it. Look at the difference in those three sitting there. You know, much more appealing to the eye than just sticking some gray paint in there somewhere. So, again, I think I probably have taken this as far as we can go. But to show you what I would do with all this, you know, a lot of people don't do this with their paints because, you know, they feel like they're wasting paints. I will end up taking all of these guys that are left, mixing them together. I'm going to get a bigger knife, hang in there. Okay. So you can see I had on my palette versus what I had on my palette last time. Totally different color of mud, right? So it's a little hard to do this up and down. Need to get a different palette probably. But I like these because I can save my work or my palette, any that I have left, any mud or whatever. I'm going to grab another color here. Let's see, I'm going to grab a cobalt teal. Michael Harding Cobalt Teal number 513, series 5. I'm going to pull a cadmium deep number 404, series 4, Michael Harding. Just for the heck of it. A yellow ochre deep number 118, series 100, or series 1, excuse me. And his very expensive lapis lazuli, which is number 702, series 7. But I love this lapis, it's so gorgeous. And let me pull, and then I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of the Venetian red, series 122, series 1. So now I've changed the colors a little bit. Let's see what we can do with the grays with just changing the base colors of the paint. A little bit of lapis. Ooh, a little bit of the cobalt teal. I guess I can put let's put these over here so you can see the difference between. So this is the lapis. And again, I'm not pulling out a lot because I'm not going to be using a lot. This is the cobalt. This is the cobalt teal. You all are allowed to laugh. I don't care if you laugh at me. Get rid of that. This is the cadmium yellow deep. I'm going to put that next to the cad yellow up here so you can see the difference between those two. This is the French yellow ochre. I'll put him right there. You can see that one. And the Venetian red I will put next to the alizarin crimson. Now, if you've noticed anything different between the primaries that I put out, which were ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and cad yellow, you'll notice that the colors that I have out right now are more opaque. These guys are translucent. These are all more opaque. Okay? Hi, Michelle. And then I'm going to put out a little bit more of the titanium white because I'm going to probably have to come up in value because these are all opaque paints. Alright, so now I have two grays that have been saved out of the mud, if you will, left on my palettes, my leftover colors. I've got this brownish one and this greenish one. So let's see how they differ with different colors in them. Okay? Previous one that was very heavy on the ultramarine blue, this one from the grays that I made on the palette. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of lapis. I love lapis. A little bit of lapis to both of them. A little more lapis. Okay, and you know, this lapis isn't very strong in tint power, is it? It's one of the reasons why I like it. So, all we really did with that lapis is change the chroma. The colors still pretty much the same. If I didn't have this thing taped down, I'll put some on, when I get to where I'm going, I'll put some over here on the white page so that you can actually see it better. Alright. So now I'm going to take this color, and I'm going to add a little bit of Venetian red to each one. Pretty. And kind of overpowered it. Again, tint power on the Venetian red is more than it was on the kind of closer to this, right? Oh, look. Look how that changes to almost a gray. That's so cool. Okay, so now I'm going to add these two together. A little bit more. And we end up pretty close to one another with that one. But even so, I'm going to add just a touch of white to each one. Because what I want to show you is how different in base color these guys are. So that. More chroma on this guy. And now that's pretty red. You see how that went to the red side? See if you guys can see that. Looks pretty streaky. There we go. You can see the difference there. A little more red, a little more brown. Okay. Start with that color, start with this color. Going to add some permanent orange to it. Same amounts if I can, as close as I can get them. Going to a green side over here. And even another shade of green. But look how much this shade of green influences this one. I'm going to do it over here on the white so you can see. So right now, looks pretty brown. There's an influence, a very slight influence. Probably not picking it up on this. Well, it kind of is on the iPad. You can see how it kind of changed into your eye to being tricked into seeing more green. Okay, so now I want to take some French ochre with this. The fun one is cobalt teal, which is absolutely one of my favorite paint colors of Michael's. Kind of going over to a bluish side, so you start to understand more. Let's use all of that. Okay. So again, even though I'm using a very warm French ultramarine into a very warm gray green relative to what we had before, again, it all goes into color relationships. Look at the difference between those two. Just those two right here. Get color off, getting the light off of it so you can see the color. Okay. That one just kind of stayed into that brown realm. It's going to stay there. It reacted more to reds than it did to, more orange and yellow tints on this side. So like I said, just playing this way, you end up learning so much about paints and pigments and how much you need to add to them. Look at the color differences here. Just slight color differences. But in a painting, that would make a great place to ground folks' eyes, especially if you're doing an all tree, all trees. Just the difference between them. I'm guilty of this. I do not use as much gray in my paintings as I should, and I love color. These grays that we're mixing up are color. There's no reason why we shouldn't be using more grays. I'm going to add some of this cobalt teal into each one of these, and let's see what happens to each one of these. And again, that is this one, the one that I mixed up from the palettes that were left over. Look how that cobalt green affects that. It's such a prettier gray, very much on the gray side until I put it next to there. But it's just a prettier color, I think. What do I know, right? And then look at that green. So now that we're still playing around with greens here, and we have browns and greens up above, let's put those up there. And see what happens to the other colors that are there. Let's put this guy down here. So you can see how all of these colors are interacting with one another. Look how this looks more purple now, more to the violet side. So This green's really bringing that green down, almost non-existent. The browns tend to stay on the green side, not on the red side. So what happens if I put this next to it? Definitely looking more green now. More blue-gray, less purple. So again, all different. You want to play and learn about color relationships, mix up some grays. Let me pull this out of here. Mix up some grays and play and just get your eyes adjusted to the colors that are there. I want to pull this up here so that you can see these closer. Hi, Jean. Gosh, I haven't seen you in a while. Talked with you in a while. Yeah, so see all those different gray colors that are there and how they're relating to one another, how they change. It's basically how we were talking, how they change when they're sitting next to one another. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the demo I was going to do today. Just play with some grays. Looking for my thing. What I want to do is I'm just going to make up another mud color with what's left over here. Call it a day for a live demo anyway. And you will probably see, I'm going to take all of these guys too. You'll probably see these appear again when I start painting my ocean waves painting. So, another thing I like about Michael Harding's paints, again, these are oils. As hard as I try, I cannot make what I would be considering as an ugly color. That to me is not an ugly color. Okay? There's so many places I can use this. I can add more white to it, and it will. There's so many places I can use this color in a painting, just to, somewhat ground it. Let me pull off my red over here, the rest of my yellow, and my ivory black that's over here, and we'll add that in. One thing I did want to do, well, I can't now, but show you that green color just with ivory black is kind of interesting. It's very much a landscape color. So now, I compare that to that, and I'm back to, a red side brown. So again, just have fun mixing paint. Don't have any type of agenda when you're doing it. And learn how your paints react to different things being mixed into it. Different colors being mixed into it, changing the value on it. I mix it with white. Or I change the value of it. Another thing that I do to get some cool colors that I can use in the painting, I'll show you here in a second. So it's a nice color too. Again, another color that's very peaceful to the eye. Places where your viewer can stop and relax and enjoy your painting. Your eye's not fighting things. So I'm putting on some ultramarine blue just to give it some additional color from brown. So one of the things that I do when I'm totally done, and I'm going to throw a piece of paper away, is I'll take some titanium white. And I'll just move it around what I have left. And pick up what other pigment is down on my palette. Okay. So if anybody ever asks you how you make mud, you know. A lot of times folks will say, oh, you don't want to use that color that you're making up right here. Why not? It's a color. It's, you probably find it out in nature. Still a lovely gray. So there we go. You know, I could still probably get some pigment up off of that, but that's it for today. So, put you up here closer. Let it adjust. So that's the one where I just put white on the palette and pulled up the rest of the pigment that was there. These guys are the ones, the browns that I made from what was on my palette of the grays that were there. That one too. That one was from a previous palette. And that was just a color. So you can see how, sorry, don't mean to get you guys dizzy. You can see how all of those colors are different and how they're relating to one another, how they change in color, etc. So anyway, that was it for today. Hope you guys, like I showed you when we first started with the Sorella, I can do this without getting it too full. And all of the gray color that he uses in his paintings, this is a way that you can start to get that in your paintings as well. Think about the triangle where you want your eye to circling around, a way to keep your eye in the painting, kicking it back towards this way, and how the image of the things that you want them to focus on is the paint that is more chromatic, not as gray. Okay? So, see you all. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hi, Alban. Hi, Maria. Talk with you guys later. Thanks. Bye.